Okay, so I have one other question. So I'm really good at navigating my group and navigating my group with lots of people around. So I sense it's almost like an archetype, but I'd like some clarity about this. Like, we arrive and we're going to be getting on the ship. Here's an example. And I feel this leadership, almost like a queen, come, and my energy field gets like huge. And we don't wait in line. We move, right? It's like, oh, you could take this, right? We all get through in 10 minutes. There were like lots of people waiting in line, and we're through. However, so I move through, I'm satisfied, I'm looking around at my people, and sometimes, maybe the answer is to not pay attention to them, but sometimes this energy that I have is, I feel is like misinterpreted by them as like...
Almost always.
Okay, that's just it. I just need to like put my sunglasses on, move like a queen, and not care.
Because that looking for mutuality with something else makes you under the influence of them. That's what we're talking about. Are you under the influence of source energy? Because that's what that feels like. It feels like clarity. It feels like when to move. Esther talks about how she really enjoys moving around the planet by herself, because when she has an impulse and follows it, then the timing is really, really nice. But if she has to round up uncooperative humans who balk or hesitate or move differently, now what we would like her to understand, your feeling of empowerment, you've even assigned yourself a title that they better obey, is helpful in the sense that you just don't want to get caught up in whatever's going on with them, which requires a lot of focus, because most of you are accustomed to offering most of your vibration in response to what you're observing. And so the more that is happening around you, the more likely it is that you would observe something that is of a vibrational nature that would introduce resistance into your equation, so that you're not tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and then you are as confused as the group that you are roaming the planet with.
Yeah, so I'm not confused. We're moving through, but there's that like little, I like it to be smooth. So there's a little bit.
When you think about it, these people who you care about, you love them, you've put what you care about them into your vortex too. So in a way, actually in a pretty substantial way, those whom you love are in your vortex, but you still cannot create in their reality. This is the fun of interacting with so many others. It's the finding your way. It's the maintaining your vibration anyway, being tuned in, tapped in, turned on, so that you know what to do, you know what's next, even if there are those who are confused around you. And most of all, under those conditions, if you're tuned in, you have less of a knee-jerk response, less of a bumpy ride. But in the moment that you begin or continue to care about their response to you, now it's not pure anymore. Now you're trying to see yourself through their eyes instead of seeing them through the eyes of source. Here's the big part. Source sees them as perfect, no matter how dysfunctional they are. But when you see their dysfunction, you separate from source and blame them. So you think your deviation from source is about their dysfunction. It isn't. It's about your lack of focus. Conditionally, you could say, if you guys would shape up, I would feel better, and that would be true, but it's still conditional. And then you have no power, because they're fickle. They're going to behave the way they're going to behave. You don't want to be under the control of how somebody else is behaving, because you can get really good at focusing just where you want to focus, but sometimes you can find yourself living a sort of isolated life, because when they misbehave, if you feel bad, then you have to take more control about their behavior, and the more control you try to take, the less good they feel. So the more control you try to take, and then the less good you feel. It's so lovely for others when you are under the influence and letting universal forces inspire them. You want to inspire their behavior, not motivate it. Oh, and you can't inspire their harmony with you unless you're in harmony with your source. And when you're in harmony with your source, then you might inspire their harmony with their source, but you're never wanting them to obey you. You're always wanting them to find harmony with their source. And you really don't want them to move around with you in a pack either. You don't want to train them into the belief that you are their leader.
Right, only when we're going through security. Then they get spread out.
Only before they are 12, and only when they have their first date, and only when they go out on their first driving, and only when, and only when, and only then. Don't give yourself an exception to that. You're either trusting their alignment with their source or you are not. And when you are not trusting their alignment with their source, and you are wanting to be the source for all of them, then you begin to feel the burden of that responsibility because you're not connected, and then you begin to resent they're not complying with it, and off you go, you say.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Like, all I wanted them to do is admire me. Walking through all of these people with ease. Yeah, this was so satisfying. Thank you so much. So good. Thank you.